What a long, strange trip it's been for Captain Pike.
Steady as we go.
The original Star Trek captain, it took over 30 years before his debut episode actually aired on TV.
Would take that long for a radio beam to travel from there to here.
But before that, the only story to feature him that had made it to screens was also, well, his last story.
Captain, you'll remember these gentlemen. 2 flashes mean no.
But that all changed in 2019 when Pike was revived for a season-long run on Star Trek Discovery.
Welcome aboard, Captain Pike.
And the popularity of that version of the character, as portrayed by Anson Mount, led to him getting his own show, Star Trek Strange New Worlds. But how did Christopher Pike get from there to here? And where exactly does Strange New Worlds fit into his story? A story that we know has a definite end.
I know.
Let's, engage with it all.
Engage.
This is Captain Pike's timeline so far.
Hit it.
Commander, this is awkward, but back in Mojave, I learned the best way to get into a cold stream was to jump right in.
There are 2 ways to look at Pike's story: chronologically in the Star Trek universe, and chronologically in the sitting on the couch watching Star Trek for most of our lives universe. We're going to approach this mostly from the former point of view, if only because we need to get off the couch more. It all started when a guy named Gene Roddenberry came up with this crazy idea for a TV show set in outer space.
The final frontier.
While developing what would become the first Star Trek pilot episode, called The Cage, Roddenberry originally named his captain Robert April. This name changed a few times, from April to James Winter, and then finally to Christopher Pike. Interestingly enough, the name Robert April would return in the first Trek animated series, where we learned that he was the captain of the USS Enterprise before Pike.
I'm Captain April, Mr. Spock.
He's also an admiral now on Strange New Worlds. Also, let's just get it out of the way and say yes, we know that there was also the so-called Kelvinverse version of Pike from the J.J. Abrams movies. He was played by Bruce Greenwood, but that's set in an alternate reality and hence doesn't really count for our purposes here.
We done? I'm done.
Anyway, Jeffrey Hunter played Pike in The Cage, where the captain is suffering from serious self-doubt over a recent mission where he lost several crew members.
I'm tired of being responsible for 203 lives.
Hunter's more melancholy take on the character is a far cry from the gung-ho, shoot-from-the-hip Captain Kirk who would eventually replace him. Canonically, this is also the first appearance of Pike. Sorry nerds, there's no star date in the episode, but we can piece together that it's the year 2254. For perspective, that's 2 years before Star Trek Discovery's first season, and 13 years before the original series' first season. During the events of The Cage, Pike and his crew, including his second-in-command number 1 and science officer Spock, encounter the illusion-creating aliens known as the Telosians. Pike is captured by these cranially enhanced guys, with their plan being to repopulate their desolate planet by having him mate with a human named Vina, who had crash-landed there years earlier.
Her parents are dead. She was born almost as we crashed.
In the end, Pike manages to escape, of course, but learns that Vina's true form is a physically scarred, hunchback, because the Telosians who can read minds and recreate reality somehow didn't know how to put her back together after her crash. Vina, desperate for human companionship, is given the illusion by the Telosians that Captain Pike stayed behind with her. But the experience on Talos 4 helps restore his confidence in himself, and he jets off on the Enterprise, despite forging a bond with Vina.
Isn't she coming with us?
No,
To be continued on this front.
no, and I agreed with her reasons.
Meanwhile, Jeffrey Hunter also jetted away, opting to not return to Star Trek after the pilot was rejected by NBC. In the real world, this is where William Shatner and Captain Kirk come in, but that's a whole other story for a different video. After the events of The Cage, Discovery establishes that Captain Pike and the Enterprise sat out the Klingon War that show's first season depicted. The Enterprise was too valuable a resource, and Starfleet ordered Pike to continue with the 5-year mission that he and his crew were currently on. A year later, in 2257, the Enterprise crew was investigating a series of mysterious red bursts across space that, frankly, we're still a little confused about ourselves. But the important part is, this is the point where Anson Mount took over the role of Pike for Discovery Season 2 in 2019. That's 54 years after NBC rejected the Cage pilot, for those of you on the couch keeping count. Pike takes over as temporary captain of the Discovery for the bulk of the season, and many an adventure is had as he and the Disco crew uncover the truth behind the red burst phenomenon. During this stint, Pike has another run-in with Vina.
How?
Via Telosian telepathy. This resolves a long-standing question regarding the, let me push up my glasses here, canonicity of the cage. The last bit in that episode where Vina was granted an illusion version of Pike was never quite confirmed as part of the story on Talos 4 during the run of the original series. That's because, while big chunks of the cage were utilized in the flashback-heavy episodes The Menagerie Parts 1 and 2, the particular moment of Vina and Illusion Pike was repurposed in a different context. But here, Vina clearly knows that her Pike wasn't real after the real Pike left the planet, though she puts it more gracefully than that.
They brought you back to me. Not the real you. It's illusory, of course. But the part of you that still lives inside of me. We've spent a lifetime together.
It's actually a really nice moment, and also goes a long way to solidifying the relationship and dynamic between Pike and Vina, which we shall soon see is very, very important for Pike as a character. Shortly after this encounter, Pike also learned that he was fated to be tragically injured at some point in the future, a fate that Trek fans always knew was coming due to the character's appearance on the Menagerie. While visiting a Klingon monastery on the planet Borreth, Pike encounters something called a time crystal, triggering a vision of his future.
Alert. Radiation leak detected.
During an accident, he is severely burned and subjected to radiation. Pike is given the choice to leave the monastery without the crystal, an act which would allow him to change his future, or take the crystal and lock the future in. Knowing that he needs the crystal to save the galaxy, he accepts his dark fate. At the end of Season 2 of Discovery, Pike returns to the Enterprise. By now, it's the year 2258, and that's basically where Strange New Worlds Season 1 picks up. There's plenty of room here for the creators of the show to play with, as the next time we see Pike in canon is that very first aired episode to feature him, The Menagerie Part 1, which is set 9 years after 2258. Of course, in our world, the episode actually aired in 1966. At some point before the events of The Menagerie, we know Pike will accept a promotion to Fleet Captain and hand over command of the Enterprise to James T. Kirk.
You ever met Chris Pike?
We met when he was promoted to fleet captain.
And in 2266, the accident he foresaw on Borreth will come to pass.
Radiation reaching critical levels.
A radiation leak will occur. Pike will save a group of cadets, but he will be doused with delta rays and forced to live out the rest of his days in a life support chair, unable to speak or even move, really. But Mr. Spock had a last-ditch plan to help his old captain. In the Menagerie, Spock hijacks the Enterprise with the disabled Pike on board, risking the death penalty in the process. When the Enterprise arrives at Talos 4, Captain Kirk comes to understand and agree with Spock's extreme actions.
Spock would have some logical reason for going there.
Maybe.
Captain Pike is beamed to the surface of the planet, where the Telosians use their power of illusion to restore him to his young, Jeffrey Hunter self, so that he can live out his days with Vina. And that's where that final moment from the cage, of Vina and the illusion of Pike walking off together, is used. Only now, in its repurposed form, it's Vina and the real Pike, finally together for good. And so, Christopher Pike's story ends where it began, which is kinda cool when you think about it.
Captain Pike has an illusion, and you have reality. May you find your way as pleasant.
For even more on Star Trek Strange New Worlds, check out our review of the first episode or our interview with the stars of the show.